Let's talk about the WNBA and the league's demise now that Caitlin Clark is no longer going to play this season. The WNBA and the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, Amber Cox, all the way up and including, let's just keep it real, Cathy Engelbert, Adam Silver, the National Basketball Association, everybody.
Caitlin Clark's season has officially come to an end, and the sad truth is that the WNBA only has itself to blame. What began with a quad strain in May was followed by repeated groin injuries in June and July, and finally capped off with a painful bone bruise in August. Her body simply kept breaking down under the pressure, and now her absence for the remainder of the year isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a catastrophe that spans the entire league. The collapse of their biggest star was the result of reckless officiating, poor communication, and the constant physical targeting of one player. Fans are furious, demanding answers, calling for refunds, and even threatening boycotts, while the league's response has been nothing but silence. How could the WNBA allow its brightest star to crumble after just 13 games? And what does Commissioner Cathy Engelbert have to say for herself in the middle of this disaster? Tell us in the comments if you believe the league shoulders the blame. Because the fact is clear, Caitlin Clark is out for the rest of 2025, and the league has no one to point fingers at but itself. The announcement that Clark would miss the rest of the season was the news everyone suspected was coming, especially after head coach Stephanie White dropped subtle hints earlier in the day. But suspicion became reality once the confirmation came straight from the source. Clark won't be stepping back on the court this season, not even if the Indiana Fever find a way to make the playoffs. And fans can't help but replay the moments where the referees stood idle while Clark was shoved into brutal screens, grabbed by the jersey, and flat out knocked off balance, only for whistles to stay silent. Possession after possession, she was battered. Whether curling off screens, trying to shake free, or being double-teamed before even touching the ball, Clark endured non-stop abuse in real time, and officials repeatedly looked the other way. The Washington Post later confirmed what fans already knew: this wasn't the result of one team's over-the-top physical play. It was the entire league taking liberties with the face of their sport. The problem didn't start this season either. Last year, in her rookie campaign, Clark absorbed 20% of all the flagrant fouls called across the league. A staggering portion of those came at the hands of Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. And let's be clear, these weren't legitimate basketball plays. These were cheap shots, capped off with players laughing as Clark picked herself up from the hardwood. Think about it, in any other workplace, people would be arrested for that kind of behavior. Yet here, the most valuable player for the league's future was openly targeted without protection. This was the league's crown jewel, the one player capable of filling arenas in Dallas, Las Vegas, New York, and Chicago. Clark wasn't just carrying her own franchise, she was single-handedly responsible for half the WNBA's ratings surge. A player with that kind of influence should have been protected as the league's most important investment. Instead, while networks signed record-breaking broadcast deals to showcase her, referees refused to give her even the most basic star treatment that NBA players take for granted every single night. Instead of a whistle, we got relentless bodies thrown at her off the ball, hand-checking that cut off her movement, and contact that would have been called a foul for anyone else. The message from the league? Clark was fair game. That's why fans call it hypocrisy. The WNBA has happily plastered Clark's face across advertisements, shouted about record ticket sales, and cashed in on her merchandise flying off the shelves. Yet when it came to doing the simplest job, protecting her on the court, the league acted as if she was no different than a rookie trying to earn her stripes. But Clark wasn't just another newcomer. She was the league's golden goose. And letting her take nightly punishment didn't just alter outcomes in box scores, it set the stage for the breakdown that ended her season. And the worst part? This wasn't just frustrating to watch, it was flat-out dangerous. Constant cheap shots don't just leave bruises, they chip away at strained muscles, grind against tendons, and pile onto an already fragile body. The quad tightness in May wasn't some mysterious injury. The groin pain in June and July wasn't an accident. Those were the predictable results of repeated hits, twisted pivots, and awkward landings that come when a player isn't being protected. Clark was forced to play through it all because her presence filled arenas that had already sold out. And here's another layer. Last season, Clark was the only one taking this level of abuse. But this year, the league has expanded its list of targets. Sophie Cunningham now leads the league in flagrant fouls drawn, only behind Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. She too has been absorbing brutal punishment on the court. But the consistency is what drives fans mad. Officials don't call flagrant fouls. They don't call common fouls. In fact, they've let entire games go by where Clark is practically tackled without so much as a whistle. And still, many in the media refuse to acknowledge the obvious. Some pundits downplay Clark's impact as if she were interchangeable. But fans see it differently. They're drawn to her game because of the flair, the flash, the deep three-pointers, and the style that sets her apart. We've seen Sue Bird. We've seen Diana Taurasi. But we've never seen anything quite like Caitlin Clark. She's dynamic, her personality shines, and her game resonates across demographics. That's why comparing her to Steph Curry isn't hyperbole, it's fact. So what happens when your golden goose stops playing? What happens when the league refuses to call fouls, and the end result is its brightest star limping instead of sprinting? Now we know. The referee's negligence didn't just swing a few games. It paved the road for Clark's season-ending collapse. Was Caitlin Clark's sophomore year doomed before it even began? Looking back, it feels that way. As early as May, reports out of training camp mentioned her quad tightening up, an injury most players would have rested to protect. Instead, Clark was rolled out for every single marketing event, every practice, and every team function. Less than 2 months later, that quad strain escalated into a groin injury. By July, it became a full tear on her right side. And finally, the announcement nobody wanted to hear: Caitlin Clark was done for the year. This wasn't the result of a single accident. It was a season-long chain reaction of bad decisions that never allowed her body to properly heal. The blow is massive. The Fever have endured countless injuries this year, but nothing compares to losing Clark. After her stellar rookie season, the anticipation for her sophomore year was sky-high. Fans waited months to see her elevate her game, only to have that excitement ripped away. It's not just a loss for the Fever, it's a devastating blow to the entire WNBA. And here's the most frustrating part: Clark was never fully healthy this season. At least 3 different times she was listed as day-to-day, each time with the word precautionary tacked on as reassurance. But in WNBA terms, precaution apparently meant taping her up, pushing her through treatment, and sending her back onto the court the same weekend.